Well, good evening and welcome. You are in the right place at the right time, and we are so glad that you are joining us for this live webcast event, Toxic Truth Exposed: How Abortion Pills Are Devastating the Environment and Poisoning Women and Children. We are so glad that you are joining us for this urgent nationwide pro-life webcast, and we wanted to give an opportunity to introduce ourselves.
So I'm Tina Whittington. I'm the Executive Vice President at Students for Life of America, and here with my friend.
I'm David B. Wright, and I previously led a pro-life ministry called 40 Days for Life, which I founded a number of years ago, and today a speaker, strategist, and leadership mentor, and big fan of the work of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action.
Thank you.
So I was thrilled when I was asked to help co-host this event with my dear longtime friend, Tina Whittington. So during tonight's event, you're going to learn a lot of very important things, and the news has been breaking left and right on the abortion pill crisis. And so we're going to be covering some of the latest breaking news, as well as some angles on this issue that you've not heard anywhere else before this evening. For example, you're going to learn a shocking revelation: how the unchecked disposal of chemical abortion pills is wreaking havoc on our environment, and the urgent steps that we must take to prevent further damage. You're also going to learn what Big Pharma does not want you to know: how medical waste from government-sanctioned abortions is slipping out through wastewater treatment facilities and contaminating our precious water sources. Tonight you'll also learn the frightening link between chemical abortions as well as hormonal havoc, how endocrine disruptors as well as active metabolites from mifepristone could be silently causing harm to many millions of people. You're going to learn the cover-up of environmental testing on RU486, the abortion pill, and the devastating consequences this is having for our planet. But you're going to learn citizen power, how you can make a difference, how you can fight back against this not only environmental crisis, but the chemical abortion pill crisis. And you the very difficult but news we have to face honestly, how chemical abortion pills now make up more than 54% of abortions nationwide and are responsible for poisoning millions of preborn children and killing dozens of women and wounding many more. And you'll learn much, much more throughout this time. So tonight, Tina, who are we going to be hearing from during this webcast?
Well, we're going to be hearing from our very own Kristen Hawkins, as well as Christy Hamrick and Isabel Brown. We've also invited in our general counsel, Zach Kester, who also runs his own law firm, Charitable Allies, as well as Nelson oh my gosh, I knew I was going to mess up. McElveen.
Yes.
So he runs, he's the CEO of Century H2O, which is a water treatment company. And so we've got a great lineup of guests hitting this from a lot of different angles, so you want to hang with us till the very end.
Yes, so we are going to cover a lot of important angles, but we want to dive right into the content, and we want to bring on our first guest. And she really doesn't need an introduction to this audience. She's a wildly popular leader in the pro-life movement, but we want to bring on the president of Students for Life of America, as well as Students for Life Action, Kristen Hawkins. And Kristen, the question that we're going to pass to you is asking you, can you please explain to us the work that Students for Life, as well as the overall pro-life movement, have been doing these last few years in regards to chemical abortion pills, and why all of a sudden the environmental impact of these pills is becoming such a more pressing issue? Kristen, what would you say to that?
Thank you all for joining the Pro-Life Generation and Students for Life tonight on this national pro-life webcast on the toxic truth. I am so honored to be with each of you tonight, even if it is remotely. You know, years ago, Students for Life began working on this issue of chemical abortion pills well beyond when anyone in the pro-life movement was even really focusing on this, because the state of California had introduced a piece of legislation that would turn state university campuses into abortion facilities. Immediately, our team engaged, and we were there in Sacramento. We were on campuses having conversations and actually winning pro-choice young people onto our side, as well as pro-lifers, that they didn't want their dormitories turned into abortion facilities. Sadly, after 3 years and after Gavin Newsom was elected governor of California, we lost that fight. As of as of just not long ago, every state university campus in California is now distributing chemical abortion pills with the assistance of Planned Parenthood. But we didn't let that stop us at Students for Life. We began a massive educational campaign educating the pro-life grassroots about the dangers of chemical abortion pills and what chemical abortion pills are RU486, and how they're not Plan B or hormonal birth control pills. This is different. The intention of these drugs is taken to end preborn life, and they stop the beating hearts of babies. So we launched a national education campaign, which you've heard about. This is chemicalabortion.com, a docu-series. We got active on college campuses. We've been on college campuses all spring semester with our This is Chemical Abortion tour, changing the minds of 19% of pro-choice students we meet on their opinion on chemical abortion. It's been unbelievable. It's our highest mind change rate we've ever seen on college campuses with Students for Life's tours. With Students for Life Action, we've been involved in the state capitals. The state of Wyoming, after a couple of years of work, the state of Wyoming, with our urging, passed Students for Life Action's model legislation to prevent chemical abortions throughout the entire state of Wyoming just this spring. And we have other states working with us like Idaho and West Virginia to pass common sense safety regulation when it comes to chemical abortion pills. But one of the things that we have learned through all of this work the past 5+ years of talking about the dangers of chemical abortions, how they're harming women, how they have 500% increase ER related visit rate, how they're 4 times higher complications, 10 times higher death rate, and then just thinking about the horrific nature of these pills, where women are told to go home, to be alone, to labor quietly and in private, even though they feel excruciating pain and feel like they are going to die, but this is via their own words, and then told to sit in the toilet, get in the bathtub, not to look as their child comes out of them, their fully formed child comes out of them, and then to flush their child down the toilet. One of the questions we asked ourselves a couple years ago was, what does this affect? You know, you can't go to a surgical abortion facility and according to state laws, surgical abortion facilities, after they kill a child, they can't just flush a child down the toilet. If you would go to the operating room and have some sort of life-threatening condition and they took off part of your arm, the operating room isn't going to just give you your arm to take home to do with what you wish. There are very strict, in America, very strict protocols for how you dispose of body parts and human beings. But that's not the case when it comes to chemical abortion. So we started asking these questions. We started meeting with researchers and scientists to ask this question of what's the impact of 5 million children who've been flushed down our drains in America through our public water systems, going into our sewers. That water then feeds aquatic life. Aquatic life lives in that water, feeds the animals. Like, what's that impact? What we've come to learn is that chemical abortion pills are dangerous and deadly for our environment. Not just for women who consume them, certainly not for the babies who are killed by them, not just the babies that are killed by them, but this also is something that anyone, pro-life or pro-choice who cares about the environment should be asking these questions. What is in our water? Because with chemical abortion, there's 3 active metabolites that remain active after a woman has an abortion. So they are passed through blood, urine, chemically tainted pregnancy tissue, chemically tainted fetal remains. They remain active after she flushes her child, after she flushes blood, pregnancy tissue, placental tissue down the toilet. They remain active, meaning they continue to do what they're supposed to do, which is end life. These are endocrine disruptors. So tonight we have a lot to talk about. We're going to uncover for you just how toxic these chemicals are, and not only are they killing women and they're killing babies. They've killed 5 million babies, but now we know they're harming our environment. And guess what? The Food and Drug Administration, the administration that is charged with approving the sale and the distribution of pharmaceutical drugs in our country, one of their jobs is to monitor how these drugs affect water, aquatic, and animal life. And they never even looked. This is what we've learned. In 23 years since these drugs have made it onto the market, the FDA has not even investigated this. This is a massive betrayal of public trust. So we're going to cover for you tonight, unpack it with you tonight. We have some special guests that I'm honored going to be joining me right after I stop talking. Nelson, for the CEO of Century H2O, is going to be talking about our water, what the effects of having RU46, the first pill in RU46, mifepristone in the water is. We're going to talk with Dr. Monique, who's a board certified OBGYN. She's a pro-life OBGYN, to talk about the effect of these endocrine disruptors in our water, and what this really means. So stay tuned. We have a lot to unpack, and then we're going to tell you what you can do to join us. You know, we're working with attorneys generals. We're working to pass pro-life legislation. We're working, you know, at the state and federal level. We're working on college campuses to educate young women. We're working online to educate all of America. But so there is a lot to do, and there's certainly a place for you to get involved.
Thank you, Kristen. This is going to be a lot of information tonight. So take notes, jot things down. We'll be giving you places to go to find more information as we go through the night. But I really thank you, Kristen, for kind of giving us the tip off of what we're going to be talking about tonight. Our next guest is Dr. Monique Rivera. She's a pro-life OBGYN, and she's going to be walking us through one of the aspects that Kristen talked about. So Dr. Rivera, can you talk to us a little bit about endocrine disruptors? What are they? What do they do? And the difference between active and inactive metabolites, and how these two things may cause harm.
Okay, so thank you so much for that question, Tina. I think it's such an important one. So basically, you want me to explain how endocrine disruptors affect the body and what the difference is between active and inactive metabolites of these endocrine disruptors, and how the active metabolites in mifepristone could create harm. So in my office, I'm a GYN physician, and I have the pleasure with working with women all the time. And one of the things that I love to do is look at hormonal abnormalities. And in so many women, they have issues with their progesterone levels. And those abnormalities in progesterone can cause these women to have issues with recurrent miscarriage, with PMS symptoms, with abnormal bleeding, all sorts of things like that. So we often look to see why these women will have these issues with their progesterone, and many times it's because of endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors are chemicals that go in and they bind in certain places, and they disrupt the normal endocrine function of those women. So they are binding to these hormonal receptor sites and either blocking them, or they are overactivating them and causing havoc in the system. And so examples of typical endocrine disruptors that I'm sure many people will realize are like phthalates and BPA, things like that that are known to be in plastics, in all sorts of different chemicals, insecticides. But the interesting thing is mifepristone is a chemical which its mechanism of action is to bind and block progesterone receptors in order to cut off progesterone from the baby. And so what happens is when the baby does not have progesterone, it will die. And so mifepristone breaks up into active and inactive metabolites, and they have really long, complicated names, but the active metabolites of mifepristone act pretty much like mifepristone. And the inactive metabolites, they don't believe do much, but after mifepristone is broken down into these metabolites, those impacts of those metabolites can still impact the person who has taken them, as well as the people downstream from that person. So when the person uses mifepristone, that stays in their body, that harms their baby, stays in their bloodstream for at least a day or so, but then it is passed out, processed through the liver, and passed out through that individual's stool. When it's passed out through the stool, that is going into our sewage system. And just like we see people all over the country are using contraceptive pills, and then they are seeing downstream, they're seeing fish who have hormonal abnormalities, who are seeing both male and female genitalia within these fish, and all sorts of other issues in the fish. In the same way, the byproducts of the mifepristone also is going into the stool and into the water system. In addition, we are asking these women, after they have taken this medication and then taken the misoprostol to contract their uterus and expel the baby into the toilet, these women are being advised to basically get rid of their baby in the toilet. So they are sitting on the toilet and dumping out blood and the baby's fetal tissue into this sewage system. It's really interesting because in so many places, people are being asked not even to dump their dead goldfish into the sewage system, because the dead goldfish can actually cause problems with the cleansing of the water down the road. So we're asking people instead, at least not us, but the abortionists are asking people to put their dead babies into the toilet. So all of the mifepristone, which is in the blood of this woman entering into the toilet, in addition to later on the metabolites ending up in the sewage system because of the stool and those breakdown products of the mifepristone ending up into the sewage system, all of this can absolutely, there's definitely a chance that these things can cause endocrine disruption in people who are then going on to drink this water and bathe in this water and swim in this water, because the sewage plant is not taking out hormones or mifepristone from the sewage water when they're cleaning it. And so it's really important to be aware of all of this, because if this blocks progesterone receptors and cuts off progesterone for these babies, and if the metabolites also have similar action, and that ends up in our sewage system, and then we're drinking this water that has not been cleansed of these things, then there is absolutely a chance that it could be blocking our own progesterone receptors. And when you take away progesterone from a woman, that leads to many problems, as I was mentioning at the beginning: recurrent miscarriage, PMS symptoms, abnormal bleeding. It's not good. So my suggestion is that we stop having abortion, and especially abortion pill abortion. Thank you.
Well, amen to that, Dr. Rivera. Thank you so much for enlightening us and helping us to understand what really is at stake, and know that we appreciate not only your articulation of the threats of chemical abortion, but also your pro-life leadership there in the Philadelphia area and beyond. Really appreciate you being a part of this webcast. Let's keep diving further into this story and exposing things that you've probably not heard before our time together this evening. And next up, I want to bring on Christy Hamrick. Christy serves as the Chief Media and Policy Strategist for Students for Life of America, as well as Students for Life Action. And Christy, I know I've known you for years, and you've been exposing the harm of chemical abortion for a large portion of your career. When you first started going back and looking at the FDA and how they shortcutted the approval of RU486, when you started looking specifically into environmental testing in that process, what did you find in the midst of your investigation?
Yeah, it's been fascinating, and it's been probably the world's saddest hobby, because I have been really obsessed with chemical abortion pills for a very long time. I trained and worked as a journalist and was a Pulliam Fellow, and I actually came to Washington, D.C. as a journalist, but got into public policy work. And while I was working for a different organization than Students for Life, Bill Clinton started to force chemical abortion pills on the market. He wasn't successful in his first term, and in his second term, they had secret meetings with private security, literally in a location outside the Beltway, where they strong-armed a deal, and the only way they could get it onto the market was to say that pregnancy was an illness and killing the baby was a cure, which is ridiculous on the face of it. And because of this emergency approval, we got the pills. ADF is talking a lot about the really manipulative process in bringing those pills to market. And initially, myself and others were very engaged in focusing on the impact of those pills on women. And it exposes women to injury, infertility, death, and even abusers, especially as Joe Biden allows it now with no-test online distribution. And I wish that those efforts to focus on the impact of the pills early on were successful. I remember a hearing, I think it was 2006, we were talking about the number of women dead that were confirmed. There's no national abortion reporting law. The only way that we know about women who die from these pills is if it's voluntarily reported. The FDA will confirm 28 deaths that we know of. But with a 500% increase rate of visits to the ER just in recent years, I'm sure that that number is undercounted. But as this went on, again, I was working in public policy work in DC for quite a long time. And in the 90s, infant dignity laws became an area where the pro-life movement was trying to pass laws. And that's where you can't treat the human remains of babies who die in an abortion vendor office as trash. You can't burn them for fuel, as was done in Washington State. You can't throw them out with the garbage. They have to be treated with respect and as human beings. But I will say that a movie with Ben Stiller and Jack Black really sparked my different interest in chemical abortion. There's a movie called Envy where Jack Black invents a product that will dissolve dog poo. And it turns out that that product hurts the environment and it kills a horse. It's funny. I know it might not sound funny, but it really got me thinking, where does it go? What happens when we dump all of this out into the environment? Because that became part of the movie. Where does it go? Where does it go? And I started asking myself that about chemical abortion. Where does it go? And when you go back and look at the approval process, in 2000, the FDA accepted a 1996 report from the Population Council. That's just a giant abortion company. They're making money off this hand over fist. Mother Jones did an expose recently. People were getting divorced, and so some of that hidden money trail was coming out. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. This isn't a charity. But the Population Council gives this report that says there's no real environmental impact except for littering. The EPA throws a 4-page cover memo on that report. 1 page is a title page, 1 page is signature. I mean, there's no copy here to look at. And everybody knows I love copy. So there's nothing to look at. And it basically just says there's nothing to see here, walk on. But what wasn't examined was, again, even if you give them the benefit of the doubt, and I don't, this is an industry built on death and profit, the volume of bodies being flushed away when we can't flush a goldfish is frightening. If you go to a hospital and have a baby, they take that placenta and treat it as pathological waste, and it is sanitized and buried in super layered ground cover or incinerated. Even if you had a home birth, they don't flush it away. And just to be clear, I deal with reporters most of the time. That's my background and my joy, frankly. This is very different from miscarriage. That's off. If a miscarriage that happens when a woman is desperately wanting to keep that baby because there are no chemicals involved. And as the doctor just explained, these active metabolites with deliberately end the death of a baby are a very different situation than a natural miscarriage. And frankly, if you have a miscarriage in a hospital, again, they don't give you that baby to take it home to flush away. That child will be treated with respect and the body will be handled carefully as they should be. So the FDA and frankly the EPA should be charged with keeping the environment safe. It's not you can do government sanctioned corporate dumping until it's proven that there's problems. You've got the Biden administration trying to get rid of gas stoves and gasoline cars and putting all kinds of regulations on American life in the name of the environment, but never once asking, do drugs that cause abortions from endangered species? This is not a one-time failure. They brought the drugs on the market manipulatively in 2000. They changed the regulations in 2016, 2019, 2021, 2023. 5 times they could have gone back and corrected this error, and they never did. Now, when we bring it up, sometimes you'll see, if you ever read this, I just want you to know it's a total lie. They'll quote some random environmentalist and they'll go, oh, it's not a problem. Prove it. The EPA, no government agency, has been doing testing. The FDA hasn't required testing. We're talking to members of Congress now saying, test the water. What's in the water? Where do the babies go? And it's frightening. And anecdotally, we're hearing about baby bodies caught up in screens. And then there's the fact that those kinds of remains turn into fertilizer that we put on our food supply. We are consuming this. Tucker Carlson did a series of interesting shows about the high miscarriage rate among animals and livestock. Gee, I wonder what's causing that. Maybe we should find out. So we've never checked. We've never tested. And believe me, Students for Life has been calling for it. We have been working with the FDA. We've been asking for meetings, and it's been crickets. And I want to give a shout out to the pro-life docs as well. They've been relentless in trying to hold the abortion industry accountable, and we hear nothing. Even if you support abortion, that is not an argument in favor of selling the drugs in reckless ways that expose women to injury, infertility, death, and abusers. They stripped away the health and safety standards to make sure women didn't die. And even if you support abortion, that is not an argument for government-sanctioned corporate dumping of medical waste, pathological waste into our food and water supply. That's not acceptable. Name another industry that's allowed to go out and pollute at will with the get out of regulation free card. You won't even be able to turn on a gas stove in your house soon if the Biden administration has their say so. You guys remember during COVID where baby food factories were shut down because of an inspection. Students for Life has been saying, when's the last time these chemical abortion factories were inspected? What do we know about the volume of medical waste now that's in the water? And the answer that comes back is crickets. So Kristen Hawkins and Tina and David and others have been very kind to join me in my massive obsession with this issue. And there's some really talented groups of people working about this in Washington, D.C. But I covered the courts for years. I was a reporter covering crime and judges. And one thing I learned for sure is if you want a good fight, pick a good lawyer. So we've done that. I know we've got a wonderful lawyer coming up. But please support Students for Life and the work that we're doing. We're going to need to take this to court because we need to force them to tell us what is in the water.
Thank you, Christy. That was really great. I love your passion, and I'm glad that you've driven us so hard at Students for Life to find these answers and get the right people involved. So thank you so much. And it sounds like a lot, and you hear about this stuff, and you think about the water, and you just go, what can I do, David? What can I do?
Well, we talked at the beginning that we would talk about citizen power, what you can do to fight back and to send a message to Big Pharma and also to deploy the power of the government against this crisis. And so we're going to reiterate this a couple of times throughout this event, but we wanted to let you know what action you can take right now to begin helping to make an impact to stop this crisis, this environmental crisis that is poisoning mothers and children. So if you're watching this event on the webcast page where there's a couple of buttons down below the video, I'll walk you through that. But if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or some other place, I'll give you a different instruction to get to the same place. But if you're on the webcast page, there's a button that says Take Action down below this video. So if you scroll down and you see a button that says Take Action, go ahead and click that button. It will open up a new tab in your browser so you'll still hear the sound of our voice while we walk you through the next step. And you say, David, Tina, I'm actually not there. I'm on social media. I'm watching this somewhere else. That's okay. You can get to the same page by opening a new tab in your browser and going to thisischemicalabortion.com. Thisischemicalabortion.com. And when you get there, click Action Center in the link at the top. And I see the link is there on screen as well. Thisischemicalabortion.com/Action Center. So thisischemicalabortion.com, click Action Center, or click the Take Action button down below. When you open that tab, the first thing you're going to see is it's going to say at the top, and I'm actually pulling this up right here on my iPad. It's going to say, take action against the distribution of chemical abortion pills. Number one, tell your attorney general, investigate chemical abortion. There are so many reasons this drug should not be on the market. It should never have been approved. It's continuing to not only kill children, harm women, but now we understand it's wreaking havoc in our environment. We need to ask the Attorney General to investigate chemical abortion. So when you click the Take Action button, when you go to thisischemicalabortion.com Action Center, and you go to this page, go ahead and fill out your first name, your last name, your email address, your phone number, your birth year, and your state, and hit submit. And that will send a petition to the Attorney General. This is a critical step. If you're watching right now, whether you're watching us live right here on, Tuesday night, May the 9th at 9:32 p.m. Eastern, or if you're watching this as a replay after the fact, take the action right now. Do not wait. Don't think, I'll get to this later, I'll do it tomorrow. Do it right now. Go there, fill out the petition, send it in, and that will begin the process. Now, on that Action Center page, there are other actions you can take. I'm not discouraging you from taking those actions, but don't take any of those actions until after you've signed that petition to the Attorney General to investigate chemical abortion. So that's what we want you to do right now. Take action. This will make a profound difference. Your voice, combined with everybody else who's registered, who's participating in this webcast, who's watching this replay, will send a strong message to the Attorney General to investigate chemical abortion and to bring to light all of these things that have been hidden under the cover of darkness. So Tina, why don't you tell us who we're going to hear from next?
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate there, this goes out to your state Attorney General. Your state Attorney General has the authority to actually cause an action that the state has to test the waters, investigate what's happening. And so for you all tonight to sign that and get as many voices as possible telling your Attorney General in your state, you care about us, you represent us, then you need to protect us by investigating and testing the waters that we are drinking in our city, state. So next up, we heard from Christy, the FDA failed us, the FDA failed women, and even pushing the RE46 abortion pills through, but they've also failed the environment. They didn't do the proper testing. And so we've been working really hard at Students for Life to kind of do these citizens petitions to the FDA to get them to re-examine what they've done, take new actions. And we just filed one, I think it was 10 days ago, really looking at water. And so I wanted our amazing General Counsel, Zach Kester, to come on and kind of tell you guys what we're doing and what we're doing as far as taking action with the FDA on the environmental impact of mifepristone, and if the FDA hears out this petition and takes action, what might that action be? So Zach, thank you for joining us tonight and being our legal advisor here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tina. David, glad to be here. So we did just file a citizen petition, is what it's called. I'll explain what that means here in a second, with the FDA. And we're in the process of completing a fourth citizen petition as well. Unlike the petition that we just heard about, petitioning our Attorney General to take some sort of action, sort of submitting a complaint, if you will, to the Attorney General's office, a citizen petition before the FDA is actually a creature of regulation. It's governed by the Administrative Procedures Act, and it is a mechanism to compel the FDA to reconsider its action. And if it doesn't, it has three options. It can deny your application or your citizen petition. It can approve it, meaning it can take the action that you've asked the FDA to do. Or it can delay indefinitely, which it's done many a time before. And this is a formal mechanism to get this sort of Byzantine administrative state moving. It actually is a way to compel your government to govern properly on your behalf. And so we have prepared a citizen petition. We have filed it on behalf of hundreds of student groups, and we have asked the FDA to add back the REMS and roll back the approval of the chemical of RU46, essentially, mifepristone, because of the reality of these active metabolites being in the water and affecting endangered species. Section 7A of the Endangered Species Act specifically requires that any governmental agency taking action, such as the approval of a drug or removing of REMS or the changing of prescribing standards, etc., that is an agency action as defined under the Endangered Species Act. And so any agency that takes action is required under Section 7A of the Endangered Species Act to consult with the basically the Environmental Protection Agency. There are two sections within the Environmental Protection Agency that are required to be consulted. So basically, the FDA did not consult with the Environmental Protection Agency. The FDA did not do an analysis or a study on the possible effects of RU-486 or mifepristone on endangered species. So we have asked that the FDA basically roll back its 2000 and each of the subsequent 2016, 19, 20, 21, 23, roll back each of its approvals or decisions and do the required assessments. The FDA didn't even pretend to comply with these requirements because all they said was, yeah, there's a little bit of packaging associated with the manufacture and distribution and utilization of RU-486, so people will throw it away and we will have to put that in our landfills. That's basically what they said. Well, that's not sufficient because, as you heard, the doctors talk about these active metabolites remain in a woman's system and they're discharged from her body in urine and stool and in the uterine contents. And our water treatment facilities, of which there are thousands all across the country, are not able to scrub these metabolites out of the water. And so it then gets into our water and we're drinking it, and who knows what effect it's having on us. So basically, we have asked the FDA to roll back its changes and do these Endangered Species Act testing and see if there are additional things that need to be done, whether it revokes the approval, whether it requires the chemical abortion process to be entirely completed within a medical facility of some kind, so that when the uterine contents are passed, those contents are captured in, say, a red medical bag and then disposed of properly along the lines of what you heard Christy Hamrick speak about. There are any number of ways that this can be sort of remediated to some degree, but the FDA has refused to even follow the law to the most basic degree and do the testing. So we've asked for that. There is an additional citizen petition that we are preparing, and this is one that multiple individuals could join if they wanted to. And basically, we are going to ask that the FDA and the EPA comply with the Clean Water Act. And the Clean Water Act is just as it sounds, and it requires that Section 301 of the Clean Water Act requires that each department or agency or instrumentality of government engaging in any activity which could result in discharge of contaminants into the environment, into the waters of the United States, to take remedial measures and do testing similar to like the Endangered Species Act. So it's a similar flavor, but unlike the Endangered Species Act, Section 7A, slightly different legal mechanism here. It's Section 301 of the Clean Water Act. And that citizen petition will be filed next month. And so as we get closer, we will be asking for signatories to see who wants to join us in that petition. Again, this is sort of a major administrative step. We're formally asking the EPA and also in this instance the FDA. We're asking the FDA and also in this instance the EPA to follow the law with regard to the Clean Water Act and RU-486.
Thank you, Zach. That was really great. And you totally perfectly teed me up for our second action item, and I didn't even ask you to do that. It was like you read my mind. So we want to tell you one more thing that you can do. So after you've signed the petition to your Attorney General, which you've already done because David already asked you to do that, you did it, the page is open. So you're already on thisischemicalabortion.com. You might be on /Action Center where you signed, but if you go back up over Action Center, you hover over it, it'll drop down and it'll show you the citizens petitions. So if you go on that page, this is chemicalabortion.com, you hover over Action Center and drop down to citizens petitions. And it has all 3 of the citizens petitions that we filed so far. The one that Zach just reviewed was citizens petition 3. But you can go ahead and you can sign on, and we will add your name to the 4th one that we are filing next month. We want to show the FDA that we expect them to follow their own rules. That's what's so crazy about this. And I don't know if you caught that when Zach was talking, is like, they're not even following their own rules. And all we're doing is saying, hey, go back, follow your own rules, and hopefully you'll come to our conclusion, which is that it shouldn't be on the market anyway.
Just a common sense conclusion. It's
Common
not our
sense.
conclusion. It's a conclusion about the facts of the situation.
Yep.
So absolutely take that action. If you haven't already, send the petition to your Attorney General. Secondly, go to Action Center, hover over that, get down to Citizens Petitions, fill that out as well, and see, look at the progress you're making. You are already making a profound impact that will save lives. So we have 2 more guests to bring to you, and the next one I'm super excited to share with you. Isabel Brown is a senior ambassador with Students for Life of America. I had never met her before getting on. We were talking just before this call began, but I've admired her work for some time here. Isabel, as we bring you on in just a second here, there are some people who have been involved in the pro-life movement for a long time. And some of us have gray hair. Some of us actually even know what the show Miami Vice is. We were talking about that before we started the live cast.
Apparently they were all born after it ended, so they don't know.
So they don't have a clue what it is. I mean, that's just, it's so surreal. But those who've been around for a long time may be saying, okay, why on earth are we talking about abortion with this environmental angle? Why are you even going there? So for you, Isabel, can you help us understand where Gen Z is on this issue and how that intersection of environmentalism really helps to advance the overall pro-life movement?
Absolutely. Well, I am so excited to be a part of this very important webcast tonight. Thank you all to you for watching, for taking time out of your Tuesday night and opening your mind and your heart to this very important issue that far too few people are talking about in our society today. Part of what we want to share with you from this conversation tonight and really challenge your perspective on this issue isn't just the substance of what we're saying, but how we can deliver that information to the next generation and the people who are going to be impacted by chemical abortion the most, and that is Gen Z. I am a Gen Zer. I am younger than Miami Vice. I'm even younger than Google. I was reminded by Tina at the beginning of this stream. I was born in 1997, which is the first year of Generation Z. And if you're scrolling through your TikTok For You page, I'm referred to as old. So maybe I don't have gray hair quite yet, but I'm part of the older Gen Zers born in the 1900s, which pangs my soul every time I hear that. But interacting with Gen Z every single day as an independent content creator, traveling to high school and college campuses across the country, interfacing in my live stream chats with my live stream that I host every day about the biggest cultural issues impacting Gen Z, I have come to find that we are an incredibly stubborn, but also open-minded generation at the same time. And what I mean by that is we're inherently skeptical of the people with the loudest microphones controlling the media, controlling our education, controlling our entertainment, and really the overall narrative of how the world works. We are willing to have our minds changed if somebody is willing to have that conversation with us. And this conversation, the subset of environmentalism, chemical abortion, and the pro-life movement at large, is easily, to me, becoming one of the easiest ways to crack open the door to change people's minds on the pro-life stance when we are in an overwhelmingly pro-abortion culture today. When you think about Gen Z, you're thinking about Americans who are about 26, I'll be 26 this month as the oldest of us, all the way down to about 12, 13 years old. So we're talking about Americans that were born between 2010 and 1997. And in that window, abortion is not just something that people have behind the scenes and are whispering in hushed tones in our classrooms or in the school hallways. It's something that we've completely normalized in society. Planned Parenthood, more often than not, taught our sex education classes in public elementary, middle, and high schools. that became a normal place for us to go to learn about forms of birth control, one of which presented to us was chemical abortion, which is not birth control or contraceptive, as we know, but that has been the normalized narrative for our generation. And now you're even starting to see shout your abortion campaigns during the Women's March on our TikTok For You pages with celebrities like Miley Cyrus licking cakes that say, we love abortion. It's crazy, but that is the normal that we live in today. So I often find myself talking to people who are several decades older than myself, who may have children that are my age or grandchildren that are my age, and they wonder, how on earth did we get here? And I think we just have to remind people, I like to say, in 2023 America, we are living in the upside down, not just on this issue of abortion, but on so many different cultural fronts where our reality and our understanding of objective truth is fundamentally different than those who came before us. And largely that does center around very controversial and polarizing issues like abortion. But where we have an opportunity to find common ground is on a subject that already has overwhelming support from Generation Z, and that is conservation and caring for our environment. This is not a partisan political issue in any way, shape, or form for America's next great generation coming into adulthood and soon to be America's largest voter bloc by a single demographic. There are about 70 million members of Gen Z in our country. And as we continue to grow up through our teenage years and become eligible to vote, one of the most consistent answers for our most pressing policy issue that we are looking for action from our elected officials on is the environment. It doesn't matter if you are a leftist, if you call yourself a socialist or a Republican, libertarian, conservative, or any jumble mix of any of those words, anywhere along the political spectrum, the vast majority of us rank the environment and environmental conservation in our top 3 political issues that we want to see action on. Interestingly, the American Conservation Coalition, which is a generally more right-of-center environmental organization, recently found that Americans aged 18 to 30, so some Gen Zers and some millennials, are generally unhappy with the direction that we are headed as a country in conserving our environment. And 53% of people in that age bracket say that we are on the wrong track as a generation in how we are conserving our environment and taking care of our most beautiful spaces. If you think that that's just a left-wing talking point, I'd really like to challenge your perspective, knowing that about 50% of young conservatives and young Republicans believe that actions to reduce the effects of climate change and be extremely pro-environment and take proactive steps in conservation need to be prioritized today. That's up significant percentage points from Gen Xers, who are our parents, and from baby boomers, who are generally speaking our grandparents. That action doesn't necessarily look like the Green New Deal or overwhelming, sweeping authoritarian legislation. That might look like driving innovation for new types of energy investment, or it might look like prioritizing American energy independence. And that prioritizes even over government action to an individual's point of view and how we can individually contribute to the larger effort of caring for our environment, because 2/3 of our generation believe that Americans are doing too little on an individual level to care for the environment as well. Where does that even come from? I think it comes from the fact that 60% of us, according to a 2019 Statista report, participate as a generation in outdoor activities. We love to be outside, and perhaps COVID had a big part to play in that process when we just needed to peel ourselves away from our TikTok For You pages or Zoom University, which I got really tired of very, very quickly. We saw a resurgence of visits back to the National Park Service or just walking around in our local public lands. And so that return to the environment is a really interesting opportunity for us to take advantage of an extremely polarizing issue that overwhelmingly our generation doesn't want to talk about because abortion has already become so normalized. And these conversations that we're having, especially on college campuses, like those Kristen and I were fortunate enough to have across campuses across America this spring on our speaking tour, people get so overwhelmed talking about the umbrella issue of abortion. But if we can talk about, okay, let's forget about maybe your opinion on the abortion issue at large for a moment. Do you believe we should have clean water? Do you have a problem with big corporations polluting our wastewater, which then poisons our soil, our animal life, our plant life, maybe even your drinking water? People stop for a moment and they think to themselves, yeah, I do have a problem with that. I do care about the environment. This is odd because I didn't think I would agree with you on anything, but on this issue, I can agree with you. And that creates a venue and an avenue for much larger common ground to go forward from there. I will say this, the fascinating thing as I wrap up what I have to share for this webcast tonight is that I do most of my engagement not on college campuses anymore, but where Generation Z is hanging out, and that is on our cell phones, on Instagram Reels, and on my TikTok For You page. And I just put out a video about this very subject that not once in the last 20 years has the FDA and the EPA worked together to do a single environmental impact study about chemical abortion since it was first approved. And there was a reporter from the Associated Press who reached out to me wanting more clarification because many experts had assured her that any level of pharmaceuticals in our drinking water were too low for us to be concerned about. So where am I even getting this information? And I provided countless sources in a 10-page or so email. And I was just informed today that they're holding off on running the story until future notice. So sometimes you have to be willing to challenge the narrative a little bit to go on offense. And that might look as simple as asking the federal government, why have you not done an environmental impact study on a really controversial issue on a venue like Instagram Reels or TikTok? And you don't need to have hundreds of thousands of followers. You don't need to have a blue check mark. You don't need to have the capacity to be featured on a webcast like this. If all of you watching this video made a very similar video on your own social media to impact your own community and put pressure, as all of our amazing panelists have said, on your local government, on your state government, by signing our citizen petition and pressing the federal government to take action on this issue, I truly believe this will be the easiest way for us to change minds on the whole umbrella issue of abortion for Generation Z for decades to come.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. I really appreciate that perspective. And I just want to affirm like what you were saying. We have been going out this spring with our spring campus tour, and it has been on the topic of chemical abortion, and we're challenging people, would you drink this water? And we have had the highest mind change rate. I know, will you?
I'm a little nervous.
But we've been in 25 states with this tour. We've had over almost 6,000 conversations. We've activated about 31% of the people that we're talking to on this issue. And we've actually changed 15% of the minds of the people that we've been talking to. The young people, the Gen Z who care about the environment. When we start with talking about the environment, they are swayed to oppose chemical abortion because they see, one, how it hurts the environment, but then they also are exposed to the fact that it hurts women and ultimately their preborn children. So I just want to thank you. So, okay, we've probably totally grossed you out tonight. And there is that point of, would you drink this water? What's in your water? And so that's why we invited Nelson McElveen on tonight. He is the CEO of Century H2O. And unfortunately, we were having some technical difficulties. So we did a pre-record. Please be gracious with us. Even the pre-record had some technical difficulties. But we invited Nelson on to talk about what's going on with the water. Is it being tested? Does this stuff actually get removed before it comes out in your faucet into your home? So Nelson, we can go ahead and pitch over to him.
Hey, Tina, thanks for having me on this segment with you. We're going to go through the Century H2O filtration system. And one of the questions that we see here is, what makes this product better than any other water filtration system? Well, this isn't really a filtration system, as you know. This is more of a wellness product. And what it does is it removes the harmful bacteria, the harmful poisons that are in the water, and then it adds in minerals that you need in your system. So it's a 6-stage system. So let me go through each stage real quick here, and you'll get an idea of what we're talking about. The first stage is sediment. So we remove all the mud, twigs, and dirt. That's the first stage. Second stage is catalytic carbon compressed, and that removes your different kind of arsenics, your chromium 6s, your fluoride, which everybody has in the water, which they want out of the water. It removes the fluoride, it removes the arsenic, it removes the chromium 6 and the lead and the mercury that's in the water. Third stage is CT resin. That removes all the calcium in your water, and what it does is it adds oxygen to the water. Let's say your water, if it's hard, adds 68 parts per million like it is in Phoenix. We add 68 parts per million of oxygen to the water. We use a negative and positive ions to create the oxygen bubbles. So it's all naturally done. So the more calcium in the water, the more oxygen in the water. So that's how it works from a standpoint of adding oxygen to your water. Next, and what that oxygen does is when the oxygen goes into your body, it creates a way for the body to heal itself through oxygen will destroy cancer. Everybody knows that, but they don't know how to get it into your system. We have the only system we know of that puts oxygen into your system in that manner. It goes through your stomach, then into your bowels, and destroys the cancer within. The next stage is trapezoid. And what trapezoid does is it adds magnesium and it adds the calcium into your diet. Everybody needs magnesium, everybody needs calcium in their diet so that they have a way to have this product in without taking the pills and the supplements. So we add that in at a very high rate, which is kind of neat. Now the next thing, now we're getting into the fun stuff. Okay, so the fun stuff is what we do is we add carbon into the system, and that carbon is two kinds of carbon. One is red carbon, and that removes all your different kind of chemicals. Every chemical known to man that's in your water, like vinyl chloride that's out in East Palestine, we removed all that product out of the water. We actually have a test for that saying that we take that out of the water. That was just done as of yesterday. Let's just say today. Sorry, this morning it came in saying that we removed all the vinyl chloride out of the water at that point. And then the last carbon that we have in our kit is a carbon that removes the pharmaceutical VOCs out of the water. Okay, pharmaceutical VOCs are anything that pharma gives you. And one of the things that you folks are very concerned about is the pregnancy pill, the pill that removes it destroys the babies. Anything that pharma gives you, we take out. And here's the reason we don't have a test in our hands to say that. This is all tested over in Europe. We cannot get that test done in America. In the United States, I've gone to over 50 different independent labs, and the EPA controls those labs, so we cannot get that out of that kind of a test done. But we have that test done from Europe because this material is made to remove the pharmaceutical VOCs out of the water for the elite's fish farms, and that's how we know we have a product that removes all pharma. Anything pharma puts in, gives you, we remove. So those, hopefully those answers will kind of answer the question of what this product does that's different than all the others. All right, the second question we have is, what is in the product that has the ability to remove chemicals and other toxic products from the water? We manage two different kinds of carbon. One is red carbon, and that carbon is built directly to remove chemicals. The chemicals that we've tested against is vinyl chloride up out of East Palestine, Ohio. And that test has been done and assures us that we have a product that will remove that chemical out of the water. The second chemical that we use is MG carbon. MG carbon removes all pharmaceutical toxins that are in the water. And what that means is anything that pharma produces, we remove out of the water. And it was created just for that purpose. So we think that we have the products that will do something that nobody else on the market has. We tried to have the chemical abortion pill tested. We could not find one lab in America that would touch it. They're all EPA managed. They're all certified by the EPA, and the EPA controls what they test and what they don't test. We have tested it over in Europe where the products are being made. So we do feel that we are comfortably to say that we have something that will protect you from the abortion chemical pill, as well as anything else that we put down the toilet or anything else that a human body processes. Say you were vaccinated, that ends up in the water, in your drinking water as time goes on. And we feel that we have that covered at this point in time, just from the tests done over in Europe. The third question we have is, what are the different poisons that this product will remove from the water? And the poisons are all the things I mentioned prior: ammonia, boron, heavy metals. We remove 5 different levels of heavy metals. Our website will show you all the different heavy metals we remove. We remove chlorine. We remove fluoride. We remove lead, mercury. We remove arsenic, and we remove chromium-6. Those are some of the big ones. So we remove well over 15 different elements, or we want to call them poisons, out of the water. So the product is above and beyond anything that an RO system will try to remove out of the water. And then I think we go down to the fourth one, and the fourth question is, what are the different minerals that this product allows the eater to deliver in the water? And that is calcium. We give you the calcium back that your body needs, and magnesium. Those are the minerals that we add to the water, and we add them in a large dosage. So by not stripping, and then there are other minerals that are in the water that we have not stated, but the 2 big ones that we push are the magnesium and the calcium. Those are things that people go and they have their doctor prescribe pills. You can get them over the counter. By drinking our water, you do not have to get involved in any kind of capsule, any kind of tablet, nothing. You just drink the water, and you will get all that product back in your system. So I think that answers the 4 questions that we have. Tina and David, thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it. Getting the word out is really important.
Thank you, Nelson. So, I'm sorry, we were cracking ourselves up in here during that about drinking the water. But I just want to recap for you guys in case you missed it. I know it's a little choppy there, but once the water's flushed, it goes into the wastewater system. We know that when it goes in the wastewater system, they do filter it, they do treat it. But if you heard what Nelson was saying, they do not test it for these chemicals, nor do they use any kind of system to take these chemicals out of the water before it goes back into your tap water. That's really important to understand. We at Students for Life, we did FOIA requests in 6 different states to ask their water treatment facilities, do you test for these metabolites? We listed the 5 active metabolites in the first drug, mifepristone, and they said no. And we called about 25 companies across the country that actually are certified by the EPA to test water and see what's in it. These are like independent, but they all said, we don't know what the test is for this. We've never tested for this. However, we know it exists because in Europe, they do all kinds of studies that have been released. If you go to our This Is Chemical Abortion website, you can see those studies. We know that it exists, but definitely I would say that those people who don't want us to know that this is in our water. It's in the FDA's best interest not to test this. And so we're not testing in the United States. Abortion is a very political issue. And so it doesn't behoove them to test it. Where in other countries like Europe, it's not a political issue. And so they do test this stuff and they do consider the environment. And so just getting back to the heart of this again, it's what's in the water. We need to demand that our attorney generals look into it, test it, protect their citizens because they have the authority to do that. And then also the FDA needs to go back and follow its own rules and test what happens when these chemicals, these active metabolites, go into the water. We know that they're not being removed. We know they're not even being tested for. And we don't even know the harms that it's causing to aquatic life, animals, or even humans once we're ingesting those chemicals.
Mm-hmm. We have covered a lot of ground tonight, and I know we've given you lots of information. We've given you multiple things to do. We'll just recap that very quickly. But as we come to a conclusion, I do want to thank a number of people First of all, I want to thank Kristen Hawkins, President of Students for Life of America and Students for Life Action, for leading the charge on this issue and for leading Students for Life to host this webcast tonight. Thank you to those on our team, Christy Hamrick and Isabel Brown. Thank you, Zach, for telling us the legal ramifications and talking about the citizens' petitions. Thank you, Dr. Rivera, for sharing the medical perspective as a pro-life OBGYN. Thank you, Nelson, for talking about how we need to filter things out of our water that are in there currently. And also thank you to my co-host, Tina, of the, as Nelson was saying, the Tina and David Show, which kind of struck us as rather amusing. It's the Tina and David Show, apparently. So, but most importantly, I want to thank you for taking time to be a part of this webcast and then for taking action on these matters. And to just really quickly recap what we're asking you to do, if you're here on the webcast page, click the Take Action button down below. It's the reddish button. Click it. It'll take you to a new tab. If you are elsewhere watching this, or you're watching the replay video, go to thisischemicalabortion.com and then click on the Action Center tab. And when you go there, fill out the petition to send a message to your state attorney general to say, investigate this abortion drug. And if they say, where did you get this information? Send them a link to this video and they can hear from the experts themselves. And then the second thing that Tina invited you to do also is if you go to thisischemicalabortion.com and hover over Action Center and go down to Citizens Petitions, you can read about and then sign on to those citizens petitions. Do those two things as the most important starting points. If you haven't done them already, do them tonight, do them before this video is over, or right after it finishes up. And then here I'm going to give you also a little extra call to action. Somebody you know needs to watch this video and they need to join you in signing these petitions. So please spread the word, invite other people to learn what you've learned tonight, and then share it and encourage them to take the same actions that you've taken. When you do these things, we will make a difference at stopping chemical abortion. So for the final word, Tina, how do you want to end us and send us forward?
Yeah, I just want to end it with the fact that we get a lot of pushback on this issue because people think we're like fake caring about the environment. But I just want to encourage you, we can care about human life from the very moment of its conception until natural death. And we can care about the environment and the impacts that our actions, like chemical abortion, have on the environment, but also have on aquatic life, animals, and also our own lives. There's a lot at stake here, and I know Dr. Rivera said some really great things about what's happening with endocrine disruptors, but this is really serious, and it is a protecting life issue. And if anyone challenges you, you can let them know. I can care about life, and I can care about abortion, and I can hold those two things while I also care about the environment. And so just challenge your friends, especially if they're maybe on the fence about abortion. This, and they're Gen Z, this might be a really great way to engage them into this conversation and activate them and change their hearts and minds about abortion. So join us.
Thank you so much. Good night.